Hello, and welcome to episode 26 of the Slow Crafting podcast. My name's Nadine, and I'm coming to you today from the northwest of England near Manchester. Now, this is the third time we've recorded this intro so far because my 3-year-old keeps popping up in the background, but hopefully she's going to sit nicely for the rest of this episode. Right, for those of you who've not joined me before, this is a podcast about trying to incorporate a slow living or slow fashion agenda, or at least my interpretation of a slow living and slow fashion agenda, into all my crafty endeavours. So I cover knitting, spinning, sewing, crochet and a whole range of other crafty and fibre goodness. Right, I suppose I should address the fact that I've been gone for over a month. Yes, we had school holidays, so trying to record when there was 2 small children in the house was just not happening. And then I had my other half at home last week as well, decorating the children's bedroom, so recording didn't happen then either. And yeah, the only time I've had so far this week has been at night time, and the quality of the video, because I don't have a fancy technical setup, the video quality wasn't good enough. So you've got me today at last, and I will give you an update on outfit number 2 for 2018. So because it's been a while, I'll give you a bit of a refresher. This is something along the lines of what I'm hoping for. So it's an oversized sort of baggy knitted top and a relaxed fit knee length sleeveless dress, along with a pair of shoes. Yes, I'm going to make myself a pair of shoes. No, not really. A pair of socks and a cowl or shawlette. Erica, stop it please. Right, so the knitted top is from Rowan Nordic Tweed, and the design is called Ingrid, and it's by Grace Melville. Right, let's find the main picture. So, because Ingrid's an awesome name, this is a picture of what it's going to look like in the end, except mine's blue and a creamy whitey colour rather than brown and cream. And last episode I showed you that I'd got the 2, it's knitted, basically it's knitted in 6 panels and then sewn together. I knitted the 2 plain blue front panels that cross over each other, so here they are. Quite boring, just plain stockinette. And now I've knitted one of the front panels, so this goes this way, and I'm really pleased with how even my tension is on this colour work, because I'll give you a close up. It's I'm used to doing stranded colour work in the round, but this is, of course, is worked flat, so I was worried that my tension would be a bit off on the pearl back rows, but it's actually looking really quite tidy. And for those of you who are interested in the back, there it is, looking quite pretty on the back as well. So yes, that's one of the front colour work front panels, and I've just started on the second. You're not going to be able to see very much, so it's one of the larger star motifs that we've got going there. I have had some time off this because I've been doing bits and bobs for the girls' bedroom, so my initial plan was to have it finished by the end of May. I'm not sure how I'm going to get on with that for now. I've not told you about the yarn, have I? The blue is from, well, they're both from my local yarn shop. The blue is Wharf Mill Yarns. Now this is the one that's only available in store. They don't have it online, but the creamy colour with the coloured flecks in it is their Countryside Tweed, and that is available online, and that's from Woolly Knits. Sorry, Woolly Knit, and that's Woolly with 1 L. But I'll put the links down below. they're really lovely to knit with. They are, I know I say this quite often because I do regularly knit with their yarn, but it's nice rustic 100% wool, British wool at that. They don't give a breed breakdown on it, but it is very nice to knit with. So that's how the cardigan top bit's coming along. So I've still got the 2 back panels, and which are colour work, both colour work, but I have a feeling they're the same size more or less as the front panels, so it shouldn't take me a horrendous amount of time, hopefully, if I can get some concentrated time in doing some colour work, because I can only do it really on a night time once the children have gone to bed, because I need to concentrate. Imagine, having said that, I do watch telly at the same time, and most of this was knitted while watching reruns of Quincy, which is one of my favourite programmes of all time, because I was a little bit in love with Jack Klugman when I was at university. But yes, so 2 back panels to do, and the other half of, well, more than half, the other section of the front panel. So that's how that's going on. Right, the pair of socks. I showed you last time that I was going to use some hand spun. Yeah, it's coming out bluer than it is in real life. It's purples and greens and blues and yellows and a whole range of beautiful colours. Now this is some superwash merino nylon. I'm saying it's nylon. I'm not sure if it. Now I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure if it has got any nylon in it. But it is. I think it has. Yeah, it's the Deep and Meaningful colourway from Fondant Fibre, who is still currently on hiatus from trading. But it's I did it as a. I don't. Oh, it's gone crusty. Go put it in the bin. Yeah, I did it as a chain ply, I think, rather than a traditional 3-ply. I'm just looking to see if I can find a bit. Oh, yes, it is. So I was just looking because on a chain ply you can see sort of every so often where you've made a new loop in the yarn. So I did this at I spun this last year. No, the year before, actually, 2016. So it's nice to be using it out of stash, and I wasn't sure what pattern I was going to do last time I spoke to you, because I didn't want anything that was going to be lost too much within the, because it is a very colourful yarn, but I also wanted sort of something a bit lacy, just because I don't have very many pairs of lacy socks. I've got lots of plain stockinette vanilla socks, but I wanted something with a bit of interest. Although part of me is wishing I'd just done vanilla socks because it would have gone so much quicker. But this is what I've got so far. So this is the first sock, and it's got a lace pattern on the front, and then it's got some smocking as well, so some wrapped stitches every so often up it, and I've got to I did it toe up, and I've got to just past the heel turn, so I think I'm 2 inches past the heel turn, and I did a fish lips kiss heel because I've never done a flap and gusset from toe up before, so I stuck to my short row heel, because that didn't require too much thinking and I could just get on and do that. Now the pattern for this is one that I've made up, sort of, because I took a motif from in this book, which is the Japanese Knitting and Stitch Bible by Hitomi Shida, that I reviewed a couple of episodes ago, and I'm not going to be able to find it now, am I? So I took a pattern repeat, and it was supposed to have a column of cable, I think, up one side or up either side of it, and I didn't want that, because it would have meant altering my stitch count a lot more for my standard sock sizing. So I did what the author recommends in the book and only used part of the stitch repeat, or part of the motif, which I wouldn't necessarily have thought to do had she not mentioned in her book about doing it and shown examples of how she's done it. So yeah, maybe not. No, it wasn't supposed to have cables at the side, I'm telling a lie. I did is this, I'm trying to not show you the charts. So this has you working the stitch repeat. Oh, it's beautiful. If you can look, there's like two columns there, two columns of V's. Now the book has you working the stitch repeat from halfway through one column of V's to halfway through the other column. So I just moved over where my stitch repeat started from. So I started from the high point in the V and worked across, oh I can't do it that way, to the other high point in the V, rather than from the low point to the low point. Which did mean my book of knitter's graph paper came in very handy, because I had to replot it all, because I couldn't just look at the chart in here and work from that with rearranged numbers. So yes, and it's not memorabilise. I cannot memorise it easily. There we go. So I still have to keep looking at the chart and referring to it. But it's working quite nicely. I'm knitting them on 2.5mm needles, which I think is actually a bit small for the gauge, because I think this is I'd say it's a good sport weight. I did work out how many wraps per inch it was the other day, but I don't know where I've put that information now. But I think it is a sport weight, so it is a bit tight, but I thought, given that the merino, they probably are going to not wear quite as well as, say, my Texel or my Wensleydale or my Teesdale or my Norwegian handspun socks. So I wanted to make them a bit more bulletproof by just tightening up the gauge on them. But it does mean that it is quite hard work on the hands, and things like the wrapped stitches are a little bit cumbersome when you're doing them. But no, this is it so far. You see the lovely striping pattern, and hopefully the lace isn't too lost within it. Let me see a bit more striping on the back. So yes, yeah, so I'm only going to do a short cut on these, so I think I'm going to get to 3 inches and then work the ribbon on it. We'll see how it looks, because it might look like it's a bit too short, because I don't want like a trainer sock style shortness. I want it a bit longer than that. But I am worried that I'm not going to have enough yarn left over to knit a second sock if I knit it too long. I could weigh the ball. That would be helpful and useful and quite sensible, but we'll see how I get on with that. So yes, loving the socks so far, but still got another one of those to knit. Right, the shawlette, that I was doing in crochet, and hello. Let's say hello. Go on then.
Hello.
They can't see you now, you've gone off screen. Oh, come towards mummy. Towards mummy.
Hello.
Right, good girl. Now go sit back down and go find something else to play with, okay? Thank you.
Play-Doh.
Play-Doh. Right. So yes, I was crocheting it, and I was using I mentioned last time that I was redoing or making my own version of a shawl that I made up for my daughter for Christmas when she said she wanted a shawl for Christmas. So I made an elongated, almost crescent shaping but slightly more angular shawl. I made it in just a blue acrylic for her, so it's quite a plain body and then it's got a lacy border. I should have brought it with me, but it's upstairs in my bedroom and my other half's asleep because it works nice, so I'm not sneaking in there to get it. Now, I was using the Linitium Ex Machina yarn, which is their basic sock, and again that's a superwash merino nylon blend. It's been in my stash, which is why I'm using it, because I've said before that I would like to move towards a non-superwash yarn base to work with, but in the meantime I have to use up what I've got and make the most of it. So yes, this is their basic sock and it's in the Eurydice colour, which is quite a speckled yarn. So this is what I've got so far. So I've done, oh you can't see because I've got a hook in my hand, hang on, there we go, make that loop bigger. So I've done most of it apart from the lace border, and my plan was to do the body in one colour and the lace border in a second. However, I only have this much left, which is not going to get me to the end of the second wing, because I think I've got about that much more to do on the other side. I'm just not happening with that tiny bit of wool that's left. Now, I did think about buying a second skein of the Eurydice and then just working it all in one colour, but at 20 odd euros plus postage I couldn't justify it to myself, and for me that was making the shawl too expensive, which seems daft because I am going to use a second skein of yarn in it. However, that was already in stash, so that doesn't count, obviously, and it would be the same price actually. So I am going to be ripping out quite a bit of this and working in a second colour onto the wings as well, and then using that second colour to do the lace bit at the bottom. But it means I didn't have to spend any more money on extra wool because I have a room full of it and I don't actually need any, so I'm making use of what I've got, which is the sensible thing to do. So yes, the second colour that I'm going to use is from Natural Born Dyers, and this is actually a BFL nylon blend. It doesn't say whether it's superwash or not. Now, this is a high twist yarn, so it's going to have a slightly different characteristic than the the basic sock looks to be quite high twist as well, so it doesn't look too dissimilar, although the Natural Born Dyers one, it looks to only be a 2-ply, whereas the Linitium Ex Machina is, I think, 3 or 4 plies, so finer 4 plies spun together, yeah, 4. So the blue in the Natural Born Dyers colour is called Summer Skies, by the way, and it's their high twist BFL nylon sock. It matches the blue in speckles in the Linitium Ex Machina colourway, so that should work quite nicely. It should blend in quite nicely. So yeah, so this is going to be across the bottom, and then there's going to be some in either wing as well. So yes, that's coming on quite nicely, but I have ripping it out now. I have ripped it out several times already. So this thing has been worked many times. That's the problem with making it up as you go along. Yeah, there's no pattern to follow except the gibberish in my own head. But there was a embarrassing story about this for me. When oh, beautiful, it's a nice pattern. When during the Easter holidays, we went to a local soft play centre. You make me something with your, yes, that's beautiful Play-Doh. You make me something with your Play-Doh. We went to a local soft play centre, and it's just round the corner from my local yarn shop. And the girls had got to the point where they'd had enough of the play centre and it was too noisy, and they just wanted to go to the wool shop. At which point my heart melted, and I'm just like, yay! My children would rather be in a wool shop than a soft play centre. I was very excited. But we went to the wool shop, and my oldest daughter has a habit of just, sometimes she's really shy, and then other times she will talk for England to anybody and everybody. And she was actually wearing the shawl that I'd made her, and she was doing a parade for the lady in the shop and showing off all the handmade things, because I think she had a jumper on that I'd knitted as well, and she's like, yes, Mummy made me this, and Mummy made this shawl, isn't it beautiful? I'm just like dying of embarrassment in a corner going, yes, I know I made them, but just shush. Oh, I like that bit. But yes, so if that wasn't embarrassing enough, she then turned round to the lady and said, did you know my mummy has a podcast? It's like, real people aren't allowed to know. Yeah, and it just made it made me really self-conscious, thinking that somebody that I might, like I'd seen in real life, might then sit and watch me gibbering about knitting for half an hour. I know there's some of you out there that do, and that's nice, and you know, it'd be nice to interact with you, but it was just, I don't know, it's slightly more embarrassing when it's real people than internet people. So I was just a bit, oh, I'm not taking you to a wool shop anymore. But no, so that was my embarrassing shawl story. So yes, so that's coming on, and that should be quite a quick finish once I've ripped it out and done it again. That's the joy with crochet. It does work up so quickly that it doesn't really matter if you have to rip it out again. I think I'm more relaxed about having to do that and redo it than I would be with my colour work knitting. Although having said that, I did have to, oh right, you go take that down there, but don't make any noise with it please, because that is very noisy. If you want to play with that, go play with it in the kitchen, okay? Okay, you say bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Okay.
That was potato down.
No, in a little while. And so yes, I did have to rip out some of the colour work. Erica, kitchen please. I did have to rip out some of the colour work for that, and then in another row I'd made a mistake, so I just dropped down and fixed it, because it was quite a few rows below, and I didn't. No, Mummy doesn't want any music now, darling. I'll have music in a little while. Yeah, it would have meant ripping back quite a lot more of the colour work, so I managed to drop down and sort it out, which was good. Right, Erica. Let's try again, shall we? I've confiscated the noisy toy, so there will be no more musical interludes, thankfully. Right, the last item on my to make list for this one outfit is the dress. Now, the dress is from the Stylish Dress book by Yoshiko Tsukiori, and it's the one that's on the cover here, except I'm making it without the sleeves. So it's got some pin tucks, ooh, in the front, and then some patch pockets, and then the back is it's got a yoke at the top and then a skirt piece for the bottom. So I'll just show you the schematic. There we go. So I'm making this with some recycled fabric. Now I've cut out all the pattern pieces, which in itself was quite a challenge, because they are printed on you do have printed copies. It's not like you have to it's not a PDF, but there are 26 patterns in this book, and there are 6 sheets of patterns that are printed both sides. Well, no, there's 3 sheets that are printed both sides, so you get 6 pattern sheets. But the patterns for those 26 dresses are overlaid across the top of each other, so you have to work out where they all are, and that you might see at the beginning, because I put on Instagram the other day sort of a close-up of a section of one of the patterns that was just lines everywhere. Just like, oh. Now theoretically they are all colour coded, but not necessarily the same colour for each pattern piece, if that makes sense. So I'm doing dress E, and some of the outlines for the patterns for E are in green, but then some of them are in a different colour. So you can't just go, oh, it'll be all the green, and I need to do that. So thankfully, with only doing the dress without sleeves, that was one extra pattern piece I didn't need, and because I'm going to use bias binding instead of facing around the neckline and the armholes, it eliminated 2 other, or at least 2 other, possibly even more. No, 2 other, because it was just the neck facing. Yeah, 2 more pattern pieces that I didn't need to cut out. Now, when I was working out what size to cut, I had a little bit of a moment, because with a 40-inch bust, that put me at a size 16, and according to this book. Now I'm sure that in other sizing that would only make me a size 14, but just having to cut out a size 16 pattern made me feel quite bad, which is ridiculous, because it's just a number, and if it fits me and looks nice, it shouldn't matter. But in my head it did. It made me a bit, oh, I don't want to be that size. But I've cut it out anyway. So once I'd had a word with myself and said, right, just get on and do it. But that is the largest size in this book. So if you were thinking about getting this book and you are larger than a 40-inch bust or a 43-inch hip, because I think I've got, my hips aren't that wide. I think hip wise I'd be onto the 14 sizing, and waist wise I'd be on to 14 sizing. It was just the bust that pushed me up into a 16. But I think the biggest size is 40-inch bust, 33-inch waist, and 43-inch hips. So if you've got bigger measurements than that, then you're going to have to grade the sizes up or use a different pattern, which is quite sad, because they do go down a lot smaller. So I think there's 6 sizes in the chart. Yes, so 6. So it starts at a 30-inch bust and a 34-inch hip. It's just tiny. No. People come in all different shapes and sizes. It just feels a completely different world in my head, because I think it was the waist sizing on it as well. It's like a 24-inch waist, and my children, well, I measured Ingrid for something, for a waist sizing, and I'm sure her waist was about a 22 inch, and she's tiny, she's a skinny little thing, and she's only 5. So thinking of an adult size with a 24-inch waist just seems a bit odd. But having said that, when I was a student in my teens, I did have a pair of trousers that had a 22-inch waist. I could only wear them on certain days, but yes, it just seems a world away from what I am now. And yes, anyway, enough gibbering about body size. One more thing about when I was cutting the pattern pieces out. They do not include seam allowance. So once I'd traced the pattern pieces, I then had to allow for seam allowance as well, which in a way was quite good, because in my head when I'm doing a seam allowance, I always do quite a generous seam allowance when I'm sewing things up. And then I look at the instructions and find I should have done it a lot narrower. But on this, it meant that when I was cutting it out, I could cut out a more generous seam allowance. So when I'm sewing it up, I can just work to my default and it's going to be the right size. But B, because when I've cut the pattern pieces out, even though I've gone for the biggest size, I'm not entirely convinced it's going to fit round the bust still. Even though it's a pattern that's got quite a lot of positive ease, it just feels like it's still going to be quite tight. So if it is, I should have a little bit of play in the seam allowance for giving me a bit of extra room around the bust. So the fabric that I'm using is actually some recycled fabric, like I said. Now, the main part of the dress, it's quite boring at the moment. It's just plain cream. But it's going to be a nice sort of indigo blue colour, because I've got some fabric dye. Now, I also picked up this book in the library the other day called Stitched Shibori by Jane Callender, and it's got some absolutely beautiful ideas for shibori and tie-dye techniques. Now, I'm not going to go crazy with the skirt because skill-wise I am not up to this standard, because this is just beautiful. Basically, I'm going to have some lines and some waves around the bottom of the skirt. Essentially, that's it. So that, some ideas from in here are going to help me when it comes to doing some stitching around the bottom. So I think around the bottom I might do some wavy lines and pull that tight and then dye it, and then hopefully I'll have a nice pattern around the bottom of the skirt.
Oh, look.
Now the challenge will be, oh wow, nice necklace, to make them even on the bottom of both pattern pieces, because there's one pattern piece for the front and then one pattern piece for the back skirt, and if my lines don't meet up at the right spot at the sides,
Look at these toys.
that might look a bit naff. So I will have to measure and make sure I start off at the same point on each side. So yes, the fabric that I'm using for this is, like I said, it's recycled. It was the lining, cotton lining from a pair of vintage curtains that were in my sister's house, one of my sister's houses, when she moved in. That was 15, 16 years, no, more than that, 18 years ago. And they were vintage then because they were from the 70s, because they were handmade. And a dress that I've worn in one of the earlier episodes, my blue one with the green and white flowers on, that was the curtain fabric, and then this is the cotton lining, because they were handmade curtains. So it's been washed, it's been worn, and it's gone to a lovely soft feel like cotton does over a long time. So I feel good that I'm using a recycled fabric rather than going out and buying reams and reams and reams of or yards and yards and yards of brand new fabric, because obviously cotton does have a significant environmental impact through the growing and manufacturing process, but possibly less so than some of the other man-made fabrics. But being able to use recycled fabric made me feel a lot better, and it was also a lot cheaper. Oh yes, beautiful pattern. Now the back yoke, I'm actually going to use some different fabric. Well, it's the same fabric but a different colour, because I'm going to use some of the fabric that I naturally dyed last year. So for this I did some like bundle dyeing with some plants and leaves and some berries. These are the honeysuckle berries, and you can see vague areas where it's a bit yellower. It's more obvious in real life. And then I used another sheet of fabric on the top that had been soaked in some Wilton's food colouring in a blue colour, and then bundled that all up. So we've got a bit of a tie-dye effect with the blue, which obviously isn't a natural dye because it's food colouring, but over the top of some of the plant dyeing in the background. So hopefully that should look quite nice on the back. Now I did want the pockets to match, to be made out of the same fabric, but I didn't have enough. So on the pockets, because they're just a basic square, I think I'm going to try and be a little bit more adventurous with my shibori on those. So I might try and stitch a circular pattern on there to go on the patch pockets, just so it doesn't look quite as one colour and then a different colour for the back, because I've run out of fabric, because that wasn't the plan. I was always going to have a different coloured back yoke at the back, so that should be quite interesting. Now I mentioned last time that I was going to do a decorative seam treatment as well, because I didn't just want to have the seams plain, because obviously last time I think I mentioned that I'd been looking at Viking costumes for hours on end, and I wanted to do some stitching, some hand stitching along the seams, A, to strengthen them, and B, as a decorative element. Oh, it's starting to rain quite heavily now, so I don't think I'll be talking for much longer. Yes, so I wanted to do decorative seam element, and just so happens that I ordered this book, The Geometry of Hand Sewing by Natalie Channing from Alabama Channing. Now I got this to help with some of the Alabama Channing patterns that I've got, because it just talked me through a lot of the stitches that she recommends for using on her patterns. I also thought, it's a beautiful book by the way, I might do a review of this in a future episode, but it gave me some good ideas for basic stitches and variations on stitches. But I think I'm either going to do a herringbone along the seams, or just found it. Where was it? Oh. Yeah, so the herringbone is this middle one here, which is one of my favourite hand stitches. I don't know why, because I use it for hemming and all sorts, and it's just one I've got down to a comfortable rhythm. Yeah, so I might use a herringbone. I don't think I'll use accretion. just because that one doesn't feel as comfortable and as natural when I'm doing it, even though it's very similar to the herringbone. But yeah, in terms of herringbone variations, it shows you how to do, it gives you examples. Here, there are what, 7 variations on the herringbone stitch. So you've got some where it's worked double, you've got some where it's worked double but woven in between the stitches, so it doesn't just look, it's not just working one on top of the other, it looks a little bit more blended. And then you've got somewhere you whip stitch the central points, and then lacing it through, lacing a second colour through your herringbone stitch, looping it through, and then knotting a second colour over the top. So there's absolutely hours and hours worth of inspiration in this book, and there's some beautiful pictures, like close-ups of some of the stitch work on the clothing samples from Alabama Channing, and they're just amazing. They really are. Looking through it, it really did make me want to start on another Alabama Channing pattern. However, it's not on my list to do at the moment, and I do need to focus. This one is supposed to be my word of the year, was to focus and work only on the things that I was supposed to be working on at any one time. I'm not doing very well with that, because you would probably have expected more progress on these items given that I've not been here for over a month. But yeah, I've knitted a blaster cardigan, I'm halfway through knitting a Ridari sweater, and spun various things, and also made lots of things for my children's bedrooms. My focus needs a bit of work, I think. But yes, I'm just trying to see if I can find a picture of some of the close-ups of the Alabama Channing stuff that'll show up well. Oh, that's the stitch I was looking for. Where is it? Next page. Yes, the other stitch I considered is a double chevron. I'm trying to, I don't know if I can show you it without showing you the instructions. I don't think I can. No, there isn't I don't think there's an example that isn't on a page with the instructions on. Oh look, here's a beautiful close-up of the beadwork and the stitching on a piece of Alabama Channing clothing. You can understand why it's so expensive when you see the amount of detail on them and think that it's all stitched by hand. It's just amazing. And there's a finished item. They're absolutely beautiful. So yes, all that to waffle on to say, I was going to do some, I think, herringbone stitch, possibly 2 colour along the seams, just to reinforce them and to make them look a bit more exciting. Now what colour I do that in is still to be decided. I'm going to do it in a different colour to the dress. Whether I do it in a cream or a turquoisey blue to tie it in with the back panel, the back yoke, remains to be seen. And yes, I'm not sure whether I'll do any more, because I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to use some bias binding for the facing instead of facing around the neck and around the armhole, so I could theoretically do some more stitching on top of the bias binding as well to hold that into place, instead of just my little normal tiny stitches on the back to hold it down. Hello. Yes, so I think the bias binding that I've got actually to finish it off is just some that I had in stock in stash, so that's yellow. So I don't know how that's going to look. It's not. You're not going to be able to see it once it's sewn in, so it should be all right. So it shouldn't. You might just get a quick glimpse of it every now and again under my armpit or something.
Armpit.
I did say armpit. Right, well it sounds like it's getting really noisy on the rain front again, so we shall say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I haven't finished talking yet, we're not quite ready to say goodbye. Yes, so thank you for joining me, and hopefully it won't be so long next time. And I'm not sure, the next episode might be a catch up on some of the other projects that I've been working on rather than this one, or possibly a review of the Alabama Channing book. We'll see how I get on and what I get time to record. Alright then, thank you for being here today, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye bye.
Bye.